They chased Obese Girl into the woods to hunt her like an animal. Mountain Man was already there, waiting. The autumn of 1819 settled over the frontier town of Red Ridge like a funeral shroud. Nestled in the Appalachian foothills, the settlement consisted of perhaps 40 wooden structures, a general store, a blacksmith's forge, and the Red Boar Tavern, where the wealthy and powerful gathered to drink, gamble, and remind the common folk of their place. Clara May Hutchins scrubbed the tavern floor on her hands and knees, her calloused fingers raw from lye soap. At 19 years old, she carried the weight of a hard life in more ways than one. Her body was large, her face round, and perpetually flushed from exertion. The tavern owner, a cruel woman named Mrs. Dalton, worked her from dawn until midnight for thin soup and a corner to sleep in the storage cellar. "Move faster, girl!" Mrs. Dalton's shrill voice cut through the evening murmur. "Those gentlemen want their cards dealt, and you're dawdling like a three-legged mule." Clara pushed herself to her feet and approached the corner table where 5 young men sat, their faces flushed with whiskey and entitlement. Travis Whitmore, the eldest son of the town's wealthiest landowner, leaned back in his chair with casual arrogance. His companions, Nathaniel Burke, James Cordell, William Ashford, and Henry Preston, came from similar stock, young men who had inherited wealth without inheriting character. "Well, well," Travis drawled as Clara approached, "the mountain arrives to serve us." Laughter erupted around the table. Clara kept her eyes downcast, setting down their whiskey glasses with trembling hands. "Tell me, Clara," William said, words slurring, "do you eat more than you serve? I swear you've grown another chin since last week." Heat burned in Clara's cheeks, but she remained silent. Speaking back meant losing her position, and losing her position meant starving on the streets. As Clara turned to leave, Travis grabbed her wrist. His grip was iron strong, his eyes glittering with something darker than simple cruelty. "You know what we were just discussing," he said. "The hunting club's annual autumn chase. We've tracked deer, bear, even a mountain lion once. But James here had the most extraordinary idea why hunt animals when we could hunt something more interesting." Clara's blood ran cold. She tried to pull away, but Travis held firm. "You see, Clara," Travis continued, "we're bored. We need something that can think, that can fear, that can run for its miserable life." "Please," Clara whispered, "please, sir, I have work to do." "Oh, you'll have work, all right," Henry said, standing unsteadily. "The hardest work of your pathetic life, running." Mrs. Dalton appeared at the bar, counting coins with her back turned. The other patrons pretended not to hear, their faces carefully blank. In Red Ridge, the wealthy did as they pleased, and the poor survived by looking the other way. Travis stood, still gripping Clara's wrist. "Here's the arrangement, pig. You're going to run into those woods at the edge of town. If you survive until sunrise, we'll let you be. But if we catch you," he smiled coldly. "Accidents happen in the woods. Very tragic." Clara looked around the tavern desperately. Every face turned away. "You have until we finish this bottle to get as far as you can," Travis said, releasing her with a shove toward the door. The bottle was half empty. Clara had perhaps 10 minutes. She ran. The night air hit her face like a slap. Behind her, she heard the hunting club's laughter, the scrape of chairs, the metallic click of rifles being loaded. Clara ran toward the forest. It was her only choice. The woods were dark and dangerous, but at least those predators killed for food, not sport. Behind her, Dogs began to bark. The tree line approached, a wall of darkness beneath the pale moon. Clara plunged into it without hesitation, branches immediately clawing at her dress and face. Her lungs burned, her heart hammered, but she pushed forward, driven by pure terror. "There she goes!" a voice shouted behind her. "Into the forest! Mount up, gentlemen!" Torches flared to life, the sound of horses' hooves on hard-packed earth, the eager baying of hunting dogs picking up her scent. Clara crashed through the undergrowth, her breath coming in ragged sobs. A low branch caught her across the forehead, and warm blood trickled into her eye. She stumbled, fell hard, pushed herself up, kept running. The forest grew denser. Clara's feet were bleeding now, leaving a trail even without the dogs. Every step was agony, but stopping meant death. "She's heading up slope." Travis's voice echoed through the trees, closer than it should be. The ground began to rise steeply. Her legs screamed in protest. Her dress caught on thorns and tore, the fabric hanging in strips. A dog crashed through the brush to her left. With a desperate burst of speed, she threw herself forward, sliding down a sudden embankment. Rocks and roots battered her as she tumbled. The world spun. She came to rest at the bottom of a ravine, the breath knocked from her lungs. For a long moment, she lay still, certain she was about to die. The dog's barking grew louder. Torchlight flickered above. "She went over!" William shouted. "Careful now, it's a steep drop." Clara forced herself to move. She crawled into a narrow gap between two massive boulders, wedging herself in, trying to make herself invisible. The hunters descended, their torches creating dancing shadows on the ravine walls. The dogs reached the bottom and began casting about, confused. "She's close," Travis said. "Spread out. Check every shadow." They searched for what felt like hours. Eventually, Travis called them back. "She's gone to ground like a rabbit. We'll smoke her out at first light. Make camp here." The hunters built a fire 20 yards from Clara's hiding spot. She listened to them laugh and drink, discussing how they would mount her head like a trophy. "My father will hush up any questions," Travis said confidently. "He always does." Clara closed her eyes, tears streaming silently down her cheeks. She had no illusions about surviving until sunrise, but she wouldn't die here, wedged between rocks like a trapped animal. The hunters' voices gradually quieted. Clara waited until the camp was silent except for snoring, until the fire had burned down to embers. Then she began to move. Every inch was agony. She squeezed herself out of the gap and began to creep along the far wall, away from the sleeping hunters. One of the dogs raised its head. Clara froze. The animal stared directly at her. Then something whistled through the air, a sound so soft she almost missed it, and the dog collapsed without a sound. Another dog began to stir, another whistle, another silent collapse. Someone else was in this ravine. "This way." The voice was barely a whisper coming from the darkness ahead. "Quickly, before they wake." Clara had no choice. She moved toward the voice. A massive figure materialized from the shadows. A man, tall and broad-shouldered, dressed in furs and leather. He gestured urgently, and she followed him into a narrow passage in the ravine wall. They emerged onto a steep slope. The man moved with surprising grace, leading her upward through terrain that seemed impossible to navigate in darkness. Clara followed, her legs shaking with exhaustion. After what seemed like hours of climbing, they reached a small plateau. A crude shelter stood against the mountainside, a lean-to made of logs and hides. A small fire burned inside. "Sit," the man said. "You're bleeding in a dozen places." Clara collapsed onto a pile of furs, her legs finally giving out. In the firelight, she got her first clear look at her rescuer. He was perhaps 40 years old, his face weathered and scarred, hidden beneath a thick beard. His hair hung long and wild. His eyes were the color of winter ice, pale gray, hard and measuring. He wore buckskins and a coat made from wolf pelts. "Who are you?" Clara whispered. "Eli Boone." He knelt beside her, examining her injuries with a practiced eye. "Been living in these mountains for 12 years? Saw those bastards drive you into the woods. Figured I'd even the odds. You killed their dogs. Poison darts. They'll wake up with headaches, nothing more. I don't kill animals for sport." His voice carried weight. Men, on the other hand. He retrieved various items, a clay pot of salve, strips of clean cloth, a water skin. He began cleaning the cuts on her feet with surprising gentleness. "This will hurt," he warned, then applied the salve. Clara bit back a cry as the medicine burned, but almost immediately the pain began to fade. "Yarrow and honey," Eli explained, "works better than anything the town doctor peddles." As he bandaged her feet, Clara studied him. There was something haunted in his eyes, something that spoke of deep pain carefully buried. "Why did you help me?" she asked. Eli was silent for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. 14 years ago, I had a wife, Sarah, and a daughter, Emma. Emma was 8 years old." His voice remained steady, but his hands stilled. "One autumn, a group of wealthy men decided to organize a hunt. Not for deer, for people. They chose the poorest folks in town. Sarah was washing clothes by the river when they grabbed her. Emma was with her." Clara's breath caught. "I was out trapping. Came back to find the whole town in an uproar, but no one doing a damn thing. By the time I tracked them into the woods," he paused, "I was too late." Silence fell between them. "Their fathers made it all disappear, said it was a tragic accident. I tried to get justice, tried every legal avenue, but men with money can afford better justice." He looked up, his ice-gray eyes meeting hers. "So I killed them, every single one of those hunters, and then I left civilization behind." "You've been alone for 12 years?" "Mostly. But people? People are worse than the worst predator in these mountains." "Then why save me?" "Because when I saw you running, heard them laughing, I saw Sarah, I saw Emma, and I decided that maybe just once it could end differently." He reached into a pack and pulled out dried meat. "Eat. You need your strength." Clara accepted the food gratefully. As she ate, she heard distant sound shouts, the braying of confused dogs. "They've discovered you're gone," Eli noted calmly. "They'll search, but they won't find this place. I've hidden it too well." "They'll keep hunting. Travis Whitmore doesn't give up." "Not in my mountains." Eli's expression darkened. "These peaks are my home. I know every trail, every cave. They're the prey here, not you. What happens now? Now you rest. In the morning, we'll talk about your options." "Options?" "I can guide you to the next settlement, 2 days' walk east. You could start fresh there." He paused. "Or you could stay here, at least until it's safe. I've survived here alone for 12 years. 2 people could survive even better." Clara lay back on the surprisingly comfortable furs, exhausted beyond measure. The fire crackled softly. "Mr. Boone?" she said quietly. "Eli." "Eli. Thank you." His response was so soft she almost missed it. "You remind me that there are still people worth saving." Clara closed her eyes and, for the first time in her remembered life, felt safe. She woke to sunlight and the smell of something cooking. Eli crouched by the fire, tending a small pot. "Venison stew," he said, "with wild onions and herbs." Clara sat up, her body aching, but her feet, when she examined them, were healing remarkably well. "The hunters?" she asked. "Gave up about 2 hours before dawn, went back to town. They'll tell everyone you died in the woods." He ladled stew into a wooden bowl. "By this afternoon, you'll officially be dead." The stew was delicious. Clara ate slowly while Eli explained her situation. "If you go back, they'll either kill you for real or claim you're an imposter. Either way, Clara May Hutchins is dead. You need to decide who you want to be instead." "I don't understand." "You can go east, start new somewhere else. I'll give you supplies. You're young, you could find work, build a life." He paused. "Or you can stay here, learn to live as I do. It's hard, lonely, and you'll never see civilization again. But you'll be free." Clara thought about Redridge, about Mrs. Dalton's cruelty, about the constant mockery and abuse. She thought about other towns, where she would still be large, still be poor, still be vulnerable. Then she thought about the mountains, vast and indifferent to human vanity, about Eli, who had suffered yet still chose to save her, about the possibility of a life where her worth wasn't measured by her appearance. "Teach me," she said. Eli looked at her for a long moment. "It won't be easy." "I've never had an easy day in my life," Clara interrupted. "At least here the brutality would be honest." Something that might have been a smile ghosted across Eli's weathered face. "All right then, we start today." The lessons began immediately. Eli taught her how to tend the fire, identify edible plants, move quietly through the forest. He showed her his trap lines, explaining the mechanics of snares. "Respect the animal," he said. "Take its life quickly. Use every part, waste nothing. The mountain provides, but only if you honor what it gives." He taught her to tan hides, preserve meat, find water. He showed her how to read weather signs, navigate by stars, predict where game would be. "You're too loud," he said one afternoon. "Every step announces you. Watch." He demonstrated how to place his feet, testing each step before committing his weight. Clara tried to imitate him. She failed repeatedly. "Again," Eli said patiently. She tried again and again, for hours. "Better," Eli finally said. "Not good, but better. That's how progress works slowly." The days blended together. Clara's soft hands developed calluses. Her body, so long mocked, revealed unexpected strength as she hauled water, gathered firewood, learned to stretch and stake hides. The weight that had been a source of shame became an advantage. She could work longer without tiring, could stay warmer in the cold mountain nights. Eli was demanding but patient. When she failed, he simply said, "Again," and demonstrated once more. When she succeeded, he gave a small nod of approval that felt more valuable than any praise. One evening, about 2 weeks after her arrival, they sat by the fire after a successful day of hunting. "You did well today," Eli said. "I had a good teacher." They sat in comfortable silence. Then Clara said, "Tell me about them, Sarah and Emma." Eli stiffened. For a moment she thought he would refuse, but then he began to speak. Sarah was practical, had to be, married to a trapper, could shoot as well as any man. But she loved pretty things too. Flowers, ribbons, songs. His face softened. Emma inherited that. She'd sing while doing chores, made up songs about everything. She sounds wonderful. She was. Eli poked at the fire. Sometimes I'm afraid I'm forgetting. It's been so long, the details fade. Tell me a detail, right now, before you forget. He thought for a moment. Emma had a gap between her front teeth. She was self-conscious about it, but Sarah and I thought it was perfect. A gap between her teeth, Clara repeated. Now I'll remember too. Eli looked at her, something unreadable in his expression. Thank you. As autumn deepened into winter, Clara's transformation continued. Her torn dress was replaced by practical buckskins. She learned to shoot, first a bow, then Eli's spare rifle. Steady, he coached. Breathe out slowly. Squeeze, don't pull. The rifle kicked against her shoulder. The shot went wide. Again. Hours of practice, days. Her shoulder bruised, her ears rang, but gradually her aim improved. The night she finally hit the target, Eli actually smiled. Well done. Winter arrived in earnest. Snow covered the mountains, and the world contracted to the shelter, the fire, and the constant work of survival. In the enforced closeness, they talked. Eli spoke about his past, his childhood in Virginia, his years as a trapper, the brief happiness of his marriage. Clara shared her own history, the orphanage that had discarded her, the succession of cruel employers, the constant hunger and humiliation. I used to pray to be beautiful, she admitted one night. I thought if I was pretty, my life would be different. Would it, though? Eli asked. Different people would have been cruel to you for different reasons. Cruelty finds a way. You had power over me. You could have demanded anything. That's not power, that's extortion. He met her eyes. Real power is choosing to be kind when no one can stop you from being cruel. Then you're the most powerful man I've ever met. Something shifted between them that night. The distance Eli had maintained began to dissolve. They were no longer mountain man and refugee. They were partners in survival, two people who had been broken by the world and were slowly healing in isolation. Spring came late to the mountains. When the snow finally melted, Clara realized she had lived an entire winter in the wilderness and survived. More than survived, thrived. She could track game, set traps, identify hundreds of plants. She could read the weather, navigate by the stars, and move through the forest nearly as silently as Eli. You're not the same girl I pulled from that ravine, Eli observed one morning. I'm not sure I was ever that girl, Clara replied. I think she was something the world forced me to be. This is who I actually am. They crested a ridge and looked down at the valley. In the distance, barely visible, was the smudge of smoke that marked Red Ridge. Do you ever want to go back? Eli asked. Clara thought about it honestly. Sometimes I miss things, fresh bread, music, but I don't miss feeling small, feeling worthless. Out here, my worth is measured by what I can do. That's a harsh kind of freedom. Freedom usually is. She looked at him. Do you ever want to go back? No. The answer was immediate. There's nothing back there for me except memories and anger. Here, I found something like peace. That evening, as they prepared dinner, riders appeared on the trail below. 3 men, well armed, scanning the forest. Eli and Clara withdrew into the shelter, watching through gaps. Can you see their faces? Clara whispered. Eli had his spyglass out. James Cordell and William Ashford. Don't recognize the third one. 2 of the hunters. They're searching. Men like that can't stand the idea that someone escaped them. Eli's voice was hard. They'll keep coming. No, Eli agreed. Men like that never do. So we make sure they find something, just not what they're expecting. Over the next weeks, Eli taught Clara a new set of skills: the art of the ambush, the strategy of guerrilla warfare, the psychology of fear. The mountains are our advantage, he explained. They're on horseback, which limits their mobility. They're civilized, which means they think in straight lines. They're arrogant, which means they're predictable. The campaign began subtly. The hunters' campsites were disturbed and the night supplies scattered, horses spooked. Their traps were sprung. Trails they followed led to dead ends or dangerous cliffs. James and William began to look haggard, jumping at shadows. But the hunters also got desperate. One night, they set a fire in the forest, trying to smoke out anyone hiding there. "Bastards," Eli hissed. "They're willing to burn the whole mountain." The fire raged for 2 days before rain doused it. When the smoke cleared, James and William had brought reinforcements, Travis Whitmore himself, along with 2 more hired guns. "This is escalating," Clara said. "So are we." Eli's voice was cold. "Time to change tactics." That night, they struck back harder. Eli led Clara through the darkness to the hunters' camp. They moved like ghosts. Eli had prepared special gifts, pouches of foul-smelling herbs that caused violent nausea, mixed into the hunters' food. A severed wolf's head left on Travis's saddle. Bloody handprints on their tents. When the hunters woke, chaos erupted. "Someone's out there!" Travis shouted. "Show yourself, coward!" From the darkness, Eli's voice boomed with surprising volume. "You came to these mountains to hunt. Congratulations! You found something that hunts back." Gunfire erupted, bullets tearing through empty forest. "Who are you?" Travis demanded. "What do you want?" "Justice." Eli's voice came from a different direction now. "The girl you hunted is dead, as you claimed, but her ghost has found a guardian. Leave these mountains and never return. This is your only warning." More gunfire, more wasted ammunition, but this time there was no response, just silence and darkness. In the morning, the hunters packed up and left. Eli and Clara watched from their hidden vantage point as the group retreated down the mountain, looking over their shoulders. "Will they stay gone?" Clara asked. "Travis might try again. His pride won't let him accept defeat." Eli lowered his spyglass. "But he'll think twice. We've made the mountain notorious." As summer progressed, the hunters did not return. Occasionally, travelers passing through reported strange tales, a haunted mountain where a murdered girl's spirit prowled, protected by a demon in human form. Eli found the rumors amusing. Let them tell stories. Stories keep people away better than threats. One evening in late summer, they sat on their favorite overlook, watching the sunset paint the valleys below in shades of gold and amber. "I've been thinking about names," Clara said carefully. "Names? Clara May Hutchins died in the woods last October. I don't think I want to use that name anymore." Eli nodded slowly. "Who do you want to be?" "I don't know yet, but someone new, someone who belongs here." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun dipped below the horizon. "Do you know what I realized?" Clara said. "In Red Ridge, I was defined by what I lacked: beauty, family, prospects. Here, I'm defined by what I have: skill, strength, freedom, and company," Eli added quietly. Clara looked at him. Over the months, their relationship had deepened from survivor and rescuer to something more complex. They were friends, partners, 2 souls who had found unexpected solace in each other's brokenness. "Yes," Company. I thought I'd hate living in isolation, but I'm not isolated. I'm just selective about my company. Same. Eli's expression was softer than she'd ever seen it. When I came to these mountains, I thought I'd spend the rest of my life alone. And then you arrived, and I remembered that solitude and loneliness aren't the same thing. I'd been lonely for 12 years without admitting it. You showed me the difference. Clara felt tears prick her eyes. You saved my life, Eli. In every way a person can save another person's life. He reached out and took her hand, a simple gesture, but one that carried tremendous weight. You saved mine, too. You reminded me that the world, despite all its cruelty, still has people worth knowing, worth protecting, worth loving. The words hung in the air between them. Clara squeezed his hand, her heart full of something she couldn't quite name. Not romantic love, exactly, but something deeper, a recognition of shared humanity, of chosen family, of the profound connection between two people who had survived horror and found peace together. The world hurt us both, Clara said, but we hurt the world back, and now we're done with it. We have this mountain, and we have each other, and that's enough. Is it really enough for you? Eli asked. You're young. You could still leave. I have a life, this life, our life. She met his eyes steadily. Unless you want me to leave? God, no. The words came out fierce and immediate. I just don't want you to wake up in 10 years and regret what you gave up. The only thing I gave up was misery. Everything else I've gained. As winter approached again, their routine continued. But this year was different. This year, Clara wasn't learning, she was contributing equally. They were true partners. One snowy evening in December, Clara sat mending a fur while Eli carved a new trap trigger. You know what I miss sometimes? Clara said. Music. Real music. You sing? Eli looked surprised. I've never heard you. I haven't felt much like singing in years. Sing now, Eli said. Tentatively, Clara began to hum, then softly sang an old folk song she remembered from childhood. Her voice was untrained, but pleasant. When she finished, Eli was staring into the fire, his eyes suspiciously bright. That was the song, he said hoarsely, Emma's favorite. I had forgotten the tune completely, thought it was lost forever, but now I'll always have it, because you gave it back. Clara moved to sit beside him. Tell me about her, all the details. I'll remember them with you. And so Eli talked for hours about Sarah and Emma, every memory, every detail. Clara listened, committed it all to memory. They're not gone as long as someone remembers them, Clara said softly. I'll carry their memory too now. You don't have to hold it alone anymore. Eli took her hand, and they sat together by the fire, two survivors binding their wounds with shared stories and mutual understanding. Spring returned, as it always does. The world beyond the mountain continued without them. Towns grew, borders shifted, history unfolded. But in their hidden shelter, time moved differently. Travelers still occasionally reported stories of the haunted mountain, of the ghost girl and her demon protector. The hunting club never returned, though rumor said Travis Whitmore drank himself to death eventually. Clara, who now called herself Kate, after a grandmother she'd barely known, thrived. Her life was hard but honest, demanding but fair. She was no longer defined by others' cruelty or limited by their expectations. And Eli, who had spent 12 years existing in absence, found himself living again. The anger that had driven him into isolation didn't disappear, but it was tempered by companionship, softened by trust. One spring morning, 2 years after Clara's arrival, they stood on their overlook, watching the valley awaken. "Do you know what they call you in the stories?" Eli asked. "The mountain's guardian angel." Clara laughed. "An angel? Me? Why not? You saved me after all. I think we saved each other." She looked at him seriously. "That's how survival works, isn't it? Not alone, but together, finding the right person to face the darkness with." "Together," Eli agreed. He put his arm around her shoulders, a gesture of family, of chosen kinship, for however long we have. They stood there as the sun rose higher, painting the mountains in brilliant morning light. Below, the civilized world continued its complicated dance. But up here, two people who had been hunted, broken, and discarded had found something civilization could never give them: the freedom to define their own worth, the space to heal at their own pace, and the profound comfort of being truly known by another human being. The girl they had hunted was dead, but the woman she had become stood strong and free, guardian of her own mountain, keeper of her own peace, partner to a man who understood that love comes in many forms, and that sometimes the deepest love is the simple choice to stand beside someone in the wilderness and say, "I see you, I know you, and you are enough." And in the end, that was better than any fairy tale.